Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today we got a real treat for you. Her name is Amanda Jones, and she is the founder of Women in Water and also a project manager at Tucson Water. Amanda, say what's up to everybody.
Hey, really glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat with you today.
Yeah. Excited to dig into what you got going on at Tucson Water, then also what Women in Water is about. So let's rewind. Let's hit the rewind button a little bit. Let's talk about how Amanda became the project manager at Tucson. Talk about I guess, from what Amanda was doing in high school all the way through to where you're at today.
Oh, wow. High school. Okay. So just a short 5 years ago. No, I'm just kidding. So when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to work in government. I always sort of had my eye on federal government because I don't think I really knew what it meant. And I, went to the University of Arizona. So bear down, go Cats. And I have an undergraduate degree in international studies. I lived in Russia for part of my undergraduate career. I was really going to be a diplomat. That was my dream. And then I came home and I was like, I can't really make an impact in my community if I live in Russia. So I finished my undergraduate program and then was deciding if I was going to do development work or government work, and what I call so I ended up going to government school is what we call it, or what I call it. So I have a master's in public administration. And that's really where I really found a passion for local government. I was really on a path to be in a municipality someplace, whether it was, city manager's office was really kind of the vibe at the moment, because you sort of touch all the things. And I graduated and was immediately snapped up by the town of Marana, which is a smaller city that's northwest of Tucson, and worked in the city manager's office for about 2 years. And while I was there, I did all these different jobs of, strategic planning and helping out the clerk's office, doing some stuff in IT. And it just happened that we had a brand new water director who needed some support because we had two long-term staff that were leaving. And he was like, hey, come over and help me. It was totally going to be temporary. And it wasn't. And that was in 2014. And I've been in water ever since. I left Marana in 2021 and I worked for a startup company called Promise for about a year. And our goal was to disrupt the government payment sphere. So affordability and being able to pay your bill is really a passion of mine. And Promise is this niche that really helps folks particularly during COVID, to get some of the federal funding that was available. So we rolled out about $15 million in federal funding across the country while I was there. And then also really helping people enroll in payment plans that are affordable, flexible, just helping them keep their water on. So it's a really lovely organization, a super passion of mine, and a really great experience. But I missed being in the municipal space, and so I had the opportunity to go back to Tucson Water, which is the water I drink, the water my parents drink, and so I don't think there's anything more relatable and closer to home than being back at my local utility. So I've been at Tucson Water for just over a year now.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool. One thing I heard in there is you're grabbed for a project and it's supposed to be temporary, and
Yep.
and he got you in there full time forever. So
Forever, yeah.
that's pretty
Super
cool.
credit to John Kamik, who is my director of Marana Water. He's actually my director at Tucson Water now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he is a mentor. He's a figure that I look to as a water professional. I like to be. That work I did in my graduate program of really trying to understand how to make an impact locally really resonated with me with water. There's nothing else that is that impactful. You turn it on every day and it's always in somebody's home. So you may not talk to your city in any other capacity, but if you except for your water bill. So I really resonated and the work that I want to do, and you can't find better people. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah. Someone's biased, but yeah, I get it.
I mean,
I like how you spent a year at that startup
Yeah.
And the scratch you were trying to itch, or the problem you were trying to solve, was payments for, I
Mhm.
guess, underserved, underprivileged communities, maybe payment plans, or just helping people out with the payment side
Yeah.
of things. And I can tell that, I'm not sure, we'll definitely get into it, what Women in Water is, but that you're taking public service to another level. It's not
Mhm.
just, oh, I'm going to work for the city or for the county and I'm going to, be a public servant that way. You're actually going out into the community and making inroads with representation, and then also helping out the people who need a little bit of help, right? Because
Totally.
we've all needed a little
Absolutely.
bit of help in life. So
Right.
go into what your plight behind Woman in Water is, and then what problem you're solving with it.
Sure. So I started Women in Water, I call it selfishly, during COVID because I just wasn't able to see my cohort of people that I see regularly throughout the year. I'm not alone in that. I think we all were reaching out for community during that time, and um, I am aggressively friendly, I would say, and so I like to connect people. So I like to talk to people, and I like to find how to connect them to others. And I wanted to use that in a way that was filling this gap of being the only, right. So in my instance, I was the only woman. I was the only non-engineer a lot of the time, and that feels isolating. So I wanted to use my skill set to create a network, and a sense of community for others. So we are WOMXN, which we use that inclusive language, to identify for anyone who identifies as a woman in the water industry is welcome to join us. And it is strictly a network building, community building organization. We do not talk about membranes or pipe types or, water resources or anything like that. We strictly are intended to build this network and these relationships with one another. We have about 150 members across the country, and most of our events are virtual. So we have, I call it Women Crushing Wednesdays. So every second and fourth Wednesday, we have for me, it's coffee. For some of our friends on the East Coast, is lunch. But we have a 30-minute get together where we talk about whatever we want to talk about, whether it's self-care or books we're reading, conferences we're going to. It really strictly is a way to build that network, because it's when I first started in water in 2014, I didn't feel that I had that community. I had it in the city manager's office, but I didn't have it in water. And so I spent a lot of time figuring out the right way to do that, and make sure I had a cohort and a network of people that I could rely on, that I could ask. I knew nothing about water when I came in, nothing. So it's valuable, and I'm now in a position in my career and in my life that I feel responsible for bringing people along with me. And so that's where Women in Water really, really got its roots. And we're
Yeah.
growing. We've got some webinars we've planned over the last 2 years. We have a book club. We've got those Wednesday events. So it's pretty small, grassroots, but we have a lot of fun.
I love how you said you felt like you're in a point in life where it was time to you to send the ladder back down, or help others out. And I think we're all at that point in life. No matter
Mhm.
what you have or what you can give or offer, it's time to kind of go, you know what? Let me actually serve, and give back. And so I love that. And then also, you hit the nail on the head when you said, we're not going to talk about technical stuff. Like, there's so much of that out there. And then, to be honest, like, whenever I want to join a group, right, whether it's a church or a social organization, anything, I always look for kind of the extracurricular activities.
Mhm.
Like, wherever I'm at in the country or even in the world, like, I'll find where people play basketball because I like playing pickup basketball,
Yeah.
and then that'll get me into that pocket, whether it's, like, again, church, or if it's a men's group or whatever. Like, I will find those extracurricular activities, like you said, self-care. Like, everybody can talk about self-care. And
Totally.
then at the end of the day, the person you're sitting next to, they might have some interest in water, and it's not intimidating because you're not talking about a whole bunch of technical stuff, and they can go, oh, like, I like these people, right? And
Totally.
then,
Yeah.
I want to go deeper into water. And then, like you said, you're a connector, you're networking with people. Like, that's you got to figure it out. Like, why don't other nonprofits follow your lead? Like, come on now.
I mean, if I was queen for the day, But we have a lot of fun. I think, we talked about caffeine the other day because I was, kind of struggling with waking up in the mornings and, getting ideas from our members about, how do they ingest their caffeine? Is it Diet Coke first thing in the morning? Is it iced
Yeah,
coffee? All the different ways. And we all can initially have that foundation, that relatable foundation of water, right? We all know
yeah,
something or somewhere, somehow are connected to this industry. And it sort of erases that awkward feeling of, well, I don't know anybody and I can't really engage here, because you can.
yeah.
We all know you do the same thing. So it's fun to learn from each other, and I've gotten a lot of recipe suggestions and podcast suggestions. And one of our recent discussions was about the summertime. So I live in Tucson, Arizona, obviously, and today it is like 107. So I'm such a lizard, so I'm just ready for the summer and want to be outside. And everyone else was just like, no, it's so hot. How do you live there? So it's just fun. I mean, we just learn a lot about each other. And we're going to try to host an in-person event for the first time with all of our members across the nation are invited in January, because it's beautiful in Tucson in January.
Oh
So
yeah.
we're going to try to get that off the ground as one of my aspirations for next year.
Cool, cool. And before we move on to more of the backstory of Amanda, how can people get connected with Women in Water? Where can they find out, how to get more connected with it?
Sure. So we have a website. It's womeninwater.org. And again, it's WOMXNINWATER. And you can sign up for our email list right on the homepage there. You can email me at aj@womeninwater.org. It's a great way to get a hold of me as well if you're interested in getting involved.
Nice,
We
nice, nice.
welcome you.
So
Come join us. It's a lot of fun.
love it, love it. So aside from Women in Water, you are the project manager at Tucson Water.
Mhm.
Let's talk about what you do there. What's a normal day like for AJ or Amanda? Sorry.
That's okay. AJ's fine too. The mayor, Marana Mayor, used to call me AJ all the time, and I think it's just the only person who ever has. It's just very funny. So I am a project manager at Tucson Water. We have lots of project managers across our department and across the city, but I am a part of our digital transformation team. So the department has embarked in this innovative and exciting move forward with a lot of our systems into kind of an integrated digital world. We're upgrading several large systems from, kind of old and maybe not as modern systems to, new and a lot more flexibility functionality. And I'm on the asset management team. So they did a big push before I got there to select the asset management software and do an implementation with our maintenance division. And we're doing in the stabilization phase of that project. And I'm responsible for getting our other divisions and other sections into the system. So very small implementation projects. So software implementation, similar to my job at Promise. And it's really understanding what the needs are of our department. It's been a really cool way for somebody who's new to the utility to learn a lot about what everyone does and who does it. There's 500 of us. I came from a utility that had 35 people. I knew all of them. So it's been a fun way so every day I'm like, who does that? Who's that? I get a name. I'm like, tell me what they do. So still learning a lot, but really getting engaged in how to use these new tools to support the work management, the asset management, and some of the data projects we have for the department.
Okay, okay. So when I think digital transformation, I think of kind of taking this huge room full of like cabinets and files and folders and like, old guys who know everything and making it so not to discriminate against old guys, but like they know everything, right? They've probably been there for 20, 30 years. And you have to distill that knowledge down and be able to deliver it to, let's say, a new hire that comes in. They somewhat know what their job description is going to be, but they need help. So what's like the hack or the Amanda way of saying, hey, we need, Billy, who's been there for 30 years and doesn't has still has a flip phone to be able to figure out like, how to work with Trevor the best way, who's a Gen Zer.
Yeah. I think so. We talk a lot about change management in our roles. And what I find is really successful is the why. Start with the why. How is this going to be helpful to you, Billy, who's, a long-term tenured employee, and also to Trevor? What's going to be supportive for that person? So we spend a lot of time talking about why, and it makes it a little bit softer when you come back and you're like, I need you to look at 10,000 rows of data. And then they're like, oh, and you go, but the why is so that this is going to be in the system accurately, and you're going to be able to assign your work order to the correct asset, and it's going to track. You're not going to have to do it twice, for example. So we spend a lot of time talking about the why and setting up that structure. The other thing you've got to add in is these legacy spreadsheets. Oh my gosh. People have their own spreadsheets that they have kept for years and years and years, and finding a way to relate the data they've already collected, which is incredibly valuable, to how the new system is going to work has been a fun challenge to take on, and figuring out the right way to say, this field's going to go here, and this is how we're going to use it long term. Because one of the goals of the digital transformation is to use our data in a really smart way. Our SCADA data may not talk to our customer billing data. So how do we know if we've pumped enough that we've billed, or, those kinds of examples? And that's what that's our goal. We're trying to reach to that connectivity of data and understanding what's happening in the utility so we can make really good decisions about it. And everybody wants to do that. Right? Everyone wants to do a good job, and everybody wants things to be easier in their job. So that's sort of how I approach those guys or gals.
No, you're right. Like, everybody wants to do well at it. So it kind of is, efficiency is built into it that way. But what would you say, like, let's say you had to train younger Amanda coming into this and like, hey, this is the one skill set that you need to be good at to be able to help out with change management and be a project manager in my position. What would that skill set be?
It's active listening. So really being able to hear what someone is saying to you and synthesize what they're saying in a way that's relatable. So I do a lot of, I take a bunch of notes, I'm frantically typing, or I'm recording our teams or whatever. And I spend a lot of time saying, what I heard you say was blah, 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 blah. And then they have the opportunity to come back and say, you're nuts. That's not what I said. Or, yeah, that's totally right. So if you're actively listening, it gives you learn a whole lot more, but it also generates that buy-in from the other person, that you're listening to them, you're understanding, you're ingesting what their needs are. And that's applicable for anything, particularly in my job, I think.
Okay. I like it. All right. So I need a story from Amanda of when something that went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Sure. So I am a recovering perfectionist. And this is a story I tell a lot, and it's really been impactful in my career. So early in my job at Marana Water, I was over the customer service division, and I made a mistake that caused our bills to be wrong. We billed, everyone essentially incorrectly for 1 month. And some of the mistakes were 1 cent. Some of the mistakes were, a few $100s, right? It was this whole gamut. So I caught it. I'm mortified. And I am trying to find, talking to my vendor about how to fix it. So I immediately am in sort of panic disaster mode, right? But I had a really wonderful mentor at the time, and I told him, I was like, this is what happened. And I was honest and straightforward. And I said, this is the solution. We need to credit or refund appropriately. And I was very scared to tell our city manager's office. I didn't want to be caught in a mistake, right? I didn't want it to impact my reputation. So it was pretty stressful. And it turned out that I put together a plan for how we were going to approach it. And I just flat out laid everything. This is what happened. I owned it. I showed him what happened. I showed him the financial impact, both in how we misbilled people and what it was going to cost to fix it. And he was just like, okay, you did all the things you were supposed to do. Let's do it. Let's do your plan. And so I didn't make that mistake again. So that's lesson one. But two is to not expect to give people grace in the way they're going to react to you. And so I try to do that too. Everyone's already going to be their own worst critic. So coming to something with grace and patience is what I was very grateful for him for when he had that conversation with me. And it's something I try to go through my life with. You know, you can be as mad at somebody for making a mistake, but it's nowhere near how mad they are at themselves. So just trying to be, patient and graceful. It still happened, 8 years ago, and I close my eyes. I'm still
sure.
in that meeting room. But we all make mistakes. We're all human, and how you treat people in their worst period of time is really reflective on both of you, and I try to remember that.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good, because we do beat ourselves up a lot when we make the mistake before we even tell anybody about it. We pretty much, dug ourselves a hole already. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there being like, can I fix this without people knowing? And that's worse. And so it's just, it was a really big challenge, and I was lucky to have it early enough in my career that's really helped over the last, almost decade.
Sure. How does Amanda, year after year, keep showing up better and better? How do you keep your sword sharp? What's your personal and professional development regimen like?
Sure. I love a conference. I just went on this gauntlet of conferences, starting it with the Utility Management Conference in March and finishing up with ACE in Toronto a few weeks ago. Those are the things that I get really motivated. I get really inspired, not only from the content and the presentations, but it's when I get to see my friends. It's when I get to just, have these relationships that I have virtually for, the whole year. And then we get to, laugh about something that happened or share stories in person. So it fills my cup to go to some of these professional development events. So on the professional side, I do that a lot. I really like to engage in that space. And on the personal side, I'm very, I recognize I need to recharge my battery. So my extrovert energy goes out, at work or the conferences or whatever. And I'm very cognizant that I need to come home and not speak to anyone. And so I'll do the sit on the couch, watch TV, whatever, just to kind of just let myself recharge. It's a lot of energy to be engaged in those kinds of ways. And it comes naturally to me, thankfully, but there is a time and place where I need to take time for myself so I can keep coming back with the same energy.
Yeah. Let's say we asked your mom or dad, like, hey, what does Amanda do all day, every day? Like, what does she do for Tucson Water? What would they get totally wrong in answering that question?
Oh man, that's a good one. So my parents are very supportive. I love them very much. But they are, I'm not sure they know exactly what I do. Most of the time when we talk about water, they're like, are we going to run out of water? I read this article in the newspaper that says we're going to run out of water. And I was like, no, promise you we're not. We've spent a lot of time and energy as a utility over the last 20 years to, prepare for drought situations. So that's most of our conversations. I think they think I'm like, I don't know, digging water up out of the ground. I'm not really sure. But my job in Marana was very straightforward for them. Like, I ran the customer service division. They knew I billed customers. They knew I did, new services, things like that. But this new job, I think they're picking it up quickly, but not quite sure 100%. So, but we have a lot of fun talking about water,
I'm sure. What's like the most common text message you get when you're in Marana or now in Tucson, like from family and friends, like, hey, Amanda, this water's a little dirtier than this used to be, or like, hey, I see some guys digging. Is that safe, or whatever? Like, what's the most notorious text message you get?
So I get, my water bill was twice as much this month. Why? And I'm like, did you use more water? So even I had a guy I worked with who sent me screenshots of his water bill and was asking me to help do some analysis of why his bill was so much. And I was like, Dude, this is a lot of things that I do not know, but here's the questions you should ask your utility. Like, that's what I would ask. I even had a good friend of mine whose parents were going through a um, appeal of their water bill, and they wanted to sit down and go through each thing with me and help them script out what they should say to the appeal board and stuff. And so I was just like, cool, this is what I would do if I was in that position. So
Yeah.
good luck. So a
Now
lot
you're
of
an
a lot of
attorney all of a sudden.
yeah, exactly. Why is my bill like this? Did they raise rates? I don't know.
Love it. I love how when people they have like a family friend and they work for the city, they feel like they have the bat line. They feel like, oh, I got a
Totally.
guy. Let me call Amanda. She'll get it figured out for me. It's like,
Totally.
dude, we just
Yep,
kind of
absolutely.
um let's say Amanda is commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Tucson. What ask of your community in regards to water would you put on this billboard?
Drink tap, period. So I
Okay.
am a tap water. You will not ever see me drink out of a bottle of water. One of my tenets as a water professional is we are proud of the product that we create, and we should be supportive of the people who are creating it for us. So, um, all that with the caveat, of course, of, if your water isn't safe to drink, et cetera, et cetera. But in Tucson, we have excellent tap water. I only drink it. I have my water bottle next to me. I've got two on my desk, and, it's always in my backpack. So and it's affordable, I mean, the relationship between bottled water and tap water is just unbelievable. So I would encourage people to drink the service that we provide. We work really hard to provide it to you at the time and the regularity that you need it. So I would put a big drink tap
Sure.
billboard. I used to have, when I was in Marana, we had a water filling station that we would take to events so people could fill their water bottles, and the sign inside it said drink more, drink tap. So it's always been kind of in my soul as a water professional from the beginning.
Sure. Sure. What was Russia like? When were you? I'm sorry, that's kind of a curveball. But were you involved with water in Russia or no? Was that
No, no,
before?
no. So
Okay.
it was just it was part of my language training. So in my
Okay.
undergraduate degree, you had to have a language proficiency, and part of that was to live in the place where they spoke the language you were studying. So I had to take class in Russian. I had to present in Russian. We even sang songs in Russian. It was wild. So, I mean, I was there in 2006, so it's certainly not the same climate that it is today. And it breaks my heart a lot of the time to see, a lot of what's happening there. But it was just old, like it's from 500, whatever they've been existing in the same space. It used to cover 1/6 of the globe. So there's this entire, kind of imperial nature that you feel and learn. And there's a lot of resonant of, sort of Soviet space. There's hammers and sickles on buildings still. And um, so it's a beautiful place with lovely, friendly people. They had Uber before Uber existed. You could just stick your hand out and someone would give you a ride wherever you needed to go. Totally safe. You just got in the car and got where you needed to be. Um,
So cool.
and yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the stuff, I was in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and all the stuff you see on TV of St. Basil's Cathedral with the cupolas, and spent a lot of time in Red Square and visited Lenin and did all the things. So it's a beautiful, beautiful place with really kind and lovely humans who taught me how to say all kinds of things in Russian that are not podcast appropriate. Um, but it was lovely. So then I came back and graduated, and it turned out Tucson is the smallest place ever. But one of our professors was the mom of a friend of mine since I was like 8 or 9 years old. So I always saw her in the Russian department, and it just was such a wonderful experience. I call back to pretty regularly.
That's cool. I mean, I used to binge Russian history. I just love everything about, like you said, how old it is and the whole ordeal. And today it's like, oh, like what's going on? Come on, guys, get it together. But how do you say water in Russian?
Voda.
But okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah. It's
Voda.
Voda. Yeah.
Gotcha,
But they use
gotcha.
Cyrillic, so it looks like a B, BO, and then this square shape, and then an A.
Okay, all
Hmm.
right. Good stuff. All right, so I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey, and then also offer a word of inspiration and motivation to your water counterparts.
Sure. So I have a laundry list of folks who have supported me to get me to where I am today. A lot of them are, cohorts and peers. So I would definitely not be here without the support of my director, John Kmeek. He's been a friend of mine and a colleague and a mentor for almost 10 years. And I've also got some really wonderful friends who've helped me engage with who becoming the professional I want to be. So Mel Butcher is one of those. Katie Richardson and Renee Lanza are three women who are just so wonderful and supportive. And they're all across the country and have just been my friends that I've met randomly through attending conferences. And so what I would leave my fellow peers or folks coming up behind me is to just be yourself and be as open as you can when you go to events, because you will really engage with this cohort that's going to be with you throughout your career. I have a whole list of folks in my phone that I can call, who I have called when I've been upset or trying to find a new job or negotiating salary that I've never done before. These women have been just such a support for me. And you can find them really easily. The water industry is so open and so welcoming that they want to support you, and you just got to step out just a little bit to get it, but you'll be so happy that you did.
Sure, sure. I like that. All right, let's say I'm coming to town. I'm coming to Tucson, and I text you ahead of time, and I'm like, "Hey, AJ, send me to the spot where I can get the best burger in Tucson. Where are you gonna send me?"
So I'm not going to send you to a burger place. You're coming to Tucson. We're going to Mexican
Okay,
food.
that's
You're
fair.
getting
That's fair.
enchiladas, tacos, whatever floats your. My comfort food is cheese enchiladas. So I love Casa Molina. That's my go-to. There's all kinds of Mexican restaurants in Tucson that are lovely, but Casa Molina is my favorite. I tend to judge them based on their enchilada sauce, which is such a
Okay,
silly thing.
that's respectable.
Um,
No, I get it because enchilada is enchilada, but the sauce, there you go.
exactly, exactly. So Casa Molina, it's family owned. There's about three or four across the city. My favorite one is the original. That's just across the street from my house. They are doing some remodeling, so they've been closed for a little while. So I've had to make a bit of a farther trek, but it's worth it every time.
Tough, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, Amanda, thank you for hopping on the Public Works podcast. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Share it with the woman who's in water or might be interested in getting in water. Connected with Amanda. Amanda, before we get out of here, any final words?
Thanks so much for having me. I love talking about water. I will talk about it every day, all the time. It's to the point that I now get water birthday presents. I have
Okay.
a water necklace I wear every day. This
Okay.
is, I love being a water professional. I encourage anyone who's even remotely interested. We have all kinds of opportunity. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be a scientist. We have space for everyone. So if this is something that tickles the back of your brain, then I would recommend you give it a try and come on in. The water is fine.
Love it. Love it. Well, Amanda, again, thanks for hopping on the show. This has been the Public Works podcast, and thank you for tuning in.